What's up, everybody? How are you? Excuse me if you was able to get some backdoor or banter. It was all good. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm with my boys. We're back in the building. We need a theme music for that. We got some of the crew here. I'm sure by the end of the month, everybody will be back on their schedules, and we're doing what we're doing. Always trying to give you the best content that we can in this world, and that's just what it is. That's what we do. I got my guys tonight. I got Rich. No, I don't have Rich. Excuse me. I got Ty Butler, and I got Chuck Richards. First, let me ask Ty, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm well, man. I'm
Good, good.
blessed highly. I'm blessed and highly favored, and I'm black, so I'm good.
Oh man, that's power to the people, man. That's what's up.
Power to the people.
Yo, Chuck, how you been, man? I haven't, like I said, we haven't really conversed. None of us. We all been I hope y'all enjoyed your little 2 months off. We had a little 2 months off, so yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, it's been great. I'm sitting here looking at, sexy Ty. He's in the gold room doing his thing, baby. Like lean back. I'm like,
Yeah,
snap.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
cool. So
You got jokes,
That's where
bro.
you're
You
supposed
got
to come in. You're supposed to come in easy. You know what I'm saying?
exactly, man. That's so good. But he
Nah,
came in loud and clear, brother. Loud and clear.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
had a long day, and I'm just relaxing, getting with my brothers before I gotta go pick my little lady up at the airport.
Okay,
Oh,
hey,
sounds
My
good,
that's
man.
like
daughter,
you
my
said,
Sounds good.
Mr.
daughter's flying in,
International.
so yeah.
What's up, Sharon? I see you. What's up, Colin? How are you? So, everybody, you know what it is. Like right now, we only gonna be on a strong hour and get out of here. But let's talk about it. I think is
Did you
that
lose
out?
Chuck?
I don't know. Oh, did we lose Chuck or Chuck will come back?
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you, Ty,
hmm
first and foremost. We can always talk about police stuff, but let's talk about the little politics right now, which is
hmm
crazy. The
hmm
third highest person in the country lost his position. Right
hmm
now, we like we're gonna talk about the whole elephant in the room. Right now, it seems like politics has become a shit show. I don't care what party you're for. We got dude talking about he's the front runner for the Republican Party. He's talking about shooting looters and all kind of things. He's making fun, talking about assassinating the general. He's talking about all kind of stuff. People talking about Biden. He too old. I was watching his State of the Union kind of thing today, and he was stuttering and stuff. I just think maybe that's just who old boy is. I'm assuming his mind is still sharp. Maybe his diction can't catch up to his tongue. You know what I'm trying to say? But um, we got a lot going on. So now I think Al Taylor is supposed to be coming in because I asked him to come in and give us a breakdown of really from the political standpoint what's really happening in the government. That's it's going to affect us some way somehow. Um, shout. I looked at I'm gonna send it to you guys. What's her name? Acosto, AOC. She did a beautiful breakdown of the government. I would play it. It's long. It's not. I'm not here to promote her, so that's why I don't want to promote it. I mean, play it, but I would really play it. But I'll start off with you, Ty, then I'll bring you in, Chuck. What's your take on what's happening with this government thing that we're going through?
My take is this: that the powers that be really weren't ready for society to react the way they have been acting. See, government basically has remained the same, where they keep everybody in their certain place and expect everyone to fall in line. And a lot of individuals aren't falling in line, and the kickback is what has everything at odds. There's a lot going on that does already affect us. Uh, the economy has definitely taken a turn. Um, you could already see what has happened with the abortion rights. You can see what's been going on with the market. You can see they to this day they've been fighting the gun laws and trying to change stuff for since long before I went into the police department. And nothing has changed. So my thing is this: that they need to revamp government overall. Senators don't need to be in there for a lifetime.
Right. Understood. Chuck, what's your thoughts?
I mean, the overall issue is that, there's always been this overall dynamic, whereas the Republican Party has always wanted to be the party of choice. And unfortunately, they've indoctrinated a lot of people who are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and they haven't they haven't looked at the overall issue associated with why they became politicians. The overall goal for being politicians was to be in a position to look after their constituency, right? You vote these people into office because primarily they're supposed to benefit the people that voted for them. And I think at some point, when you start to look at the issues associated with party before population, that has always been a problem. And we get away from the dynamic associated with why politics or being put in a position of power is something that was a staple. So when people go to a point where they go to a poll and they pull a lever, they're hoping that those particular politicians have their best interests at hand. And unfortunately, that has not been the case. If it has to do with large scale interest groups, if it has to do with certain organizations that have supported, their platform, or they want them to support their platform, then that's what the direction they go into. And now you got people such as Trump, unfortunately, and which is there's still a large constituents or people who are still looking at him as being the leader of the Republican Party, and seeing that he is obviously off the goddamn rails and he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and there's still people that still want to support him. See, that's a problem. Yeah, I know Biden may be old, and people say, well, this is the oldest president we ever had, and the whole nine yards. But you know what? I would rather put myself in a position to deal with someone who has some type of levity in regards to looking at the country as an egalitarian, as opposed to looking at the country as being or him wanting to be a dictator. And
Understood.
that's my point. If
Yeah.
if his overall influence in terms of the country is about wanting to be an egalitarian as opposed to being a dictator, then I will go that route regardless of how old he is. And it appears as that's where this country is starting to pretty much navigate. And that's kind of dangerous for all of us in some way or another. And the Supreme Court, unfortunately, based on what Trump has put in place, you can see a lot of what we think is our civil liberties, especially when it comes to women making a choice, making and being able to make a clear choice directly related to what they need to deal with and what they have to handle on a normal basis, of just having to be the birthright of this country. And that's what I have a problem with, with Trump and all these other men that are making decisions. I'm sorry, motherfucker. You didn't come out of some other man.
Yeah, right.
You weren't birthed through some canal or something in a test tube. You came through another woman, and based on the fact that that woman made a sacrifice on behalf of their own biological issues, their body, their issue, you were here based on them. And to sit there and to say very clear that they don't have a right to make a decision associated with their own ability to say yes or no. See, I have a problem, and I have a big issue with that. So I don't
Right.
know where this country is going, but it's dangerous in a lot of ways. And I wish that sometimes we could just go back to old school, bring
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
down to
yeah,
the basement and go, my man, we need to have a conversation, and
yeah,
I'll beat
yeah.
some sense into your ass. We can't do that
Absolutely.
anymore, but, but,
Absolutely, brother.
so.
Yeah. So without further ado, I reached out to my other co-host and asked him to come on and because he's in politics, and I'm sure that he knows a little bit more than us from the integral part of how this thing is all played out. We kind of conversed a little earlier via text, and everybody, I welcome my brother Assemblyman Al Taylor to the forum tonight. Brother Al, what's going on, baby?
Hey,
Not
good
Big
evening, brothers.
Al.
Good evening. Good evening. What it do, fellas? Listen,
What's
I,
good?
I don't, I just want to correct you, Brother Bill, and I never, ever, but man, I'm not smarter than anybody in the room. When you ever find yourself as being the smartest in the room, get the hell out of there quick,
That's true.
right?
That's true. So, but I just figured just because you wear that title, Assemblyman, it's just
I
like,
wear the title, but I am a product of everything, the sum total of everything that I've experienced, and I don't take anything for granted. I am humbly happy to serve. And I tell folks, certain politicians, well, I'm a public servant, and I always see myself that way only because people make careers out of this. I've only been in this like 6 years, but I've worked for someone for
mhm,
28 years. And my thing is, how do you bring service, 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 service? And to piggyback on what was just said, I mean, this country is basically dead split straight down the middle of wanting to go back to that old school, whatever it is. And they're buying that old school kind of conversation. But reality is they're selling you the concept of old school and we want to frame up these rights, but at the same time, they're just ripping America off to make their pockets as fat as they can make them, straight up. They want to tell
yeah,
you, oh, you want to do it, you want to, there's nobody in here. I'm going to be contradictory, but people out here making tons of freaking money, right? And they're giving you this platform and they're selling you a bill of bad goods, in my opinion. When it comes to the Republican parties, their thing is about getting richer and richer and exploiting the weaknesses, which are we don't get involved enough. They're in a bad way right now. I looked at AOC's commentary on social media. She nailed it all the way down. She had all the bullet points and why it happened. I mean, while we're looking like right now, the one of the strongest nations in the world doesn't have its stuff together when you talk about the third person in charge. Um, that seat is basically empty right now in America because of greed, greed
yeah,
and racism. Their thing is they can excuse people trying to kill folks at the White House. We're going to kill our colleagues and then come back later and say, oh, they didn't mean it that way. It was just a normal day. They can run roughshod over the whole damn building, and we come out in a peaceful demonstration, and they've got every army in America standing on the streets for a couple of hundred black folks just standing for justice, and white folks just go bananas. That's 100%. They went bananas down there, and they got away
right,
with it. And it was so deep. I mean, whether they were police officers, military people, they came with skill sets ready to do whatever was necessary to take and make sure Donald Trump was there.
Hmm.
Donald don't care one way about them. And you see anything that he with, it's like a he tosses it to the side. Yo, he was somebody can't. Yo, he needs this. Yo, he needs to go to jail. Everybody that take a bullet for him, he sold them up the river. This is about financial wealth and gain for all of his people and those that think alike. Giuliani's the worst mayor I think we've ever seen in New York City. He's credited with reviving. Giuliani screwed up by having his tower. He had a bunker in the towers. Why would you put a bunker there knowing that they tried to bring the building down in the first place? He's an idiot and he's known as that mayor, that whatever. No, he's an idiot. He's a racist and has always been,
Hmm.
and he goes to the highest bidder. I'm just naming out some of the people in the Trump thing. So this guy that loses his seat is a bigger a-hole. Why? Because he allowed or he got maneuvered into allowing one person to be able to make a vote, make a notion, not a notion, make a motion to take out the speaker. You allowed that to happen. And never in the history of America has that done. But in negotiating and putting the things together, and remember, he didn't win coming out of the gate. He took like 2 weeks before they could figure out if he's going to be the speaker. And he pimped and sold himself to everybody to get what he wanted. And
yeah,
he's there dealing with his own demise because he wasn't smart enough to stand on his
Very
kahunas and
true.
make his word
Very
his
true.
word.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
America, we have what
Hmm.
we have. But remember Cheney and all this stuff.
yeah,
I'm telling you, AOC That's honestly, if we had 2 hours, I would say watch that, pause it, and talk.
Yeah,
Watch that, pause
I'm
it, and
going to
talk.
send it to,
Because
and
she walked
anybody
it
that
back.
wants it, I will send it to you. Because let me tell you something. She broke it down, fellas. As soon as I get off this, I'm going to send it to you because she gave us a good, like you said, Al. She gave a good like hour soliloquy synopsis of what it was, and she broke it down. And no matter what you feel about her, she articulated from point to point to point to point. And let me tell you something. If I knew her, trust me, I'd have begged, borrowed, and been like, "Come on this show," because. But you know what? I got my man on, and I wanted him to give it to her. So Al, you know what's so funny? Do you think this kind of cripples? And then I'll open it up to the fellas, of course. Do you think this kind of cripples us a little bit because right now, like we don't have the third person in control of the government has gotten ousted. First, he bogarted his way in, like we all agree. You know, and then he, like you said, he was in making promises behind a closed door and stuff
Right.
like that. You know, do you now, especially with the budget and things like that? Do you think this hinders us, and does this trickle down to what you guys do in Albany and anything like that?
Well, I think it has. There's definitely an impact on the country as a whole, and I kind of like that. What I heard somewhere recently in this discussion was, we just go down to the basement and have a conversation, see if we can straighten things out.
Yeah. Where you active is where you get it. We'll come and talk to you.
You can't
We used to
tell
do
me,
that in the precinct, right,
like,
fellas?
right. At some point, dude, at some point, if I'm playing blackjack, your money need to be on the table. If I'm the bank and I'm playing blackjack, okay, I'm not talking about the casino blackjack. I'm talking about us in a circle. We're playing blackjack. Yo, when I say, bet, and I win, I want my money right now. Like, yo, because I'm gonna have to see you. That's how. If you don't, you ass betting, and if you don't have the money, it's your ass. That's an ass bet, money or your ass. And at this point, no disrespect, his ass was on the line. He could not deliver, and he thought that Democrats would come out of him. You know what?
You're breaking up.
You're breaking up, brother.
The people.
Hold on, you're breaking up. So hold on. I'm gonna give a shout out. Hold on, Al, because you're breaking up. So when you get some clarity, get back in there. Hold on, Al. Hold on. Shout out to everybody that's chiming in. Colin said some good things. Allison Williams is in. We'll see her on the third Monday of the month. It'd be good to have her back. Emmy award winning. Is it Emmy? Yeah, I think it's Emmy, right? Allie, help me out. I know you got it right now.
For 2 weeks for him to become the speaker. So if you take those 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then that gives you 1 week to negotiate because they can't do anything. They can't function. Zero. Nobody can do anything. The only person that can make a move is the governor. I'm sorry, the president may be making some executive moves, but right now, the House is shut down. DC is shut. You know what? My mama say nobody go outside. Don't nobody go outside. We ain't doing nothing, and they can't. They cannot do anything. So that means at some point you're gonna have servicemen and women that are working that conceivably may not get a check if we don't get another extension or if they can't work this out. The TSA people are gonna be working with no money. They may even be quitting because they can go somewhere else. And the same thing happened with air traffic controllers. They started to leave one time before because they can't work 3 months without paying their mortgage. Nobody's giving them a break. So it's money on the wood, make it all good. So yeah, we have a problem. That doesn't necessarily impact our body of legislators for the most part. I mean, what happens to us is depending on what kind of cuts Washington is laying out will determine what type of support we're able to do on a federal level. So what would that look like? Off the top of my head, let's say we're going to get in New York City or public housing, there is $20 billion nationally, and we're gonna put 10 billion of that money that we're looking to put in NYCHA, whether it's boilers or other things like that for the infrastructure. We won't get that money, and NYCHA is bleeding in terms of the needs that they have. We don't have the capability to underwrite $10 billion to give NYCHA the support. I'm just using it as an example of how it can impact us to trickle down if this thing doesn't happen. And then the things that we used to receiving, whether you're going to the airport or some other federal entity, you're not going to get the service because the people are not going to be in place, or they're going to be overwhelmed, and it's going to be a longer process. Just off the top.
Let me just say this. Colin chimed in. He said term limits and age limits is what's needed on a national and local level. Chuck, what's your thoughts?
Say
And then
that
I'll come
again?
to you, Ty. Hold on. He said age limit, term limits, and age limits is what's needed on a national and local level. I'm just going to pass it around. I know you might not be with us long, Al, but I just want to pass it around to Chuck. Chuck and
Oh,
Ty, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts
No,
on that?
honestly speaking, listen to Al. I mean, he's pretty much the aficionado when it comes to all this. I mean, he's the insight directly related to the political issues associated with all this. And, we're outside. We're reading things directly related to on the media. We hear it on the radio. We read it, let's say, directly online. And listening to Al, I mean, honestly speaking, I don't really have much to say. I'm learning, and it's an education to me just hearing from what Al has to say, and it's giving me a far broader insight on the issues associated with the government than I can even put any like tails on, honestly
Understood.
speaking. So
Yeah.
it's honestly speaking, I'm just sitting here as a student, between you and I.
No, I respect that, because the bottom line is we have to
bless you.
learn, because the bottom line is from this journalist aspect that we have all taken, even though, I mean, boom, you guys are with me. And once we do social media, we on YouTube and stuff like that, we're journalists now, because we're speaking on topics, that things that go around the world and stuff, because we can definitely pick up on some sports and other things like that. But the bottom line is I am mature enough to know if I don't know, I know how to defer and ask somebody that does.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Ty, I'm gonna ask you your personal opinion, then I'm gonna bring it back to Alan, ask his personal opinion, because that was a great statement that Colin brought up. And shout out to Allison Williams. She's in the building too. She's watching us. So go ahead, Ty. What's your thoughts?
Before Al came on, I said that
Yeah.
in the Senate and the House, they do need to have term limits. I think that they would honestly take their constituents more to heart if they knew they had term limits, rather than once they're in there till death. Just to address the elephant in the room, and what we were talking about, government has been in disarray, and it just shows you the mentality of this country. Government has been mostly in disarray ever since Obama went into office, and white people lost their mind. And they didn't expect that to happen. And once he went into office, that's when they shut the government down. You never seen that happen before. And then all of a sudden, here comes Trump, and things get 10 times worse, because everything that individuals were thinking comes out, because he's allowing it to come out. My understanding is the president can actually decide who gets paid when the shutdown from different government entities. I don't know. I could be wrong. Al could correct me if I'm wrong on that one. So,
yeah, Al, what's your first take on? Go ahead, Al.
Just on that last one, he has a very limited role to play in terms of how the pay gets where it gets. That's how they have the ability to shut it down. So you have to have an agreement out of both houses. And though he may have a wish list of where, and the way if I'm understanding it correctly, because I'm on the state level, not on the federal level, but it's pretty much the same in terms of procedure. So he may have a desire for X, Y, and Z, but there are certain things that inherently cannot stop working. I'm sorry, I'm driving, so I apologize.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We got you now. You're clear.
Okay.
No, I got you. Got you now.
So it's there is when you shut down the government, there's some things that says if you do not have these things together in the Constitution, then this will happen. But even when that goes into a shutdown mode, these are the things that must get paid. These are the people that must stay in position. Everybody can't go home and leave the nation defenseless. I can't get on a plane and come back from Iraq if I'm over there serving. All of those things have to continue where they're going. And my wife and my kids are expecting a check because I'm out in a different country. So we have to continue, and they won't get their money either. So you're working, but you're not getting your money. And a lot of people have had this experience when it happened before and they left. I think to the question about Trump, um, the hate and the venom really came out on front page when Obama was elected, and it just killed him when he made a second term. It just they lost their mind. So I mean, Trump was the one that took time to said, he needs to have a birth certificate. He wasn't a citizen. All of these things were happening. Is the lowest of the lowest when the people with morals and hate. You're just fueling them. And now they're there, the Proud Boys and everything. They've always been there, but he gave them a legit platform. And when I went into Virginia, ran his car through the crowd and killed a woman, he said he didn't see anything wrong with that. And then he kind of softly walked it back. He's never had the kahunas to stand up and say and do what was right. His heart is filled with nothing but hate and bigotry and privilege. So when you look at the exonerated five, he was the one that took the whole page out of New York Times and said they should be killed because they raped this white woman. And there's this white privilege thing that they haven't gotten past yet, and they can't. But put that to the side. I'm very leery.
No. I'm glad you brought that up because that's going to lead me to my next question to ask you guys.
Okay. Let me just drop this one, if I could, Bill.
No, go please. Go ahead.
On the question of term limits. I understand on the outside why it makes more sense, but on the inside it doesn't. It doesn't. I think accountability is what we need. Like, if everybody is actively engaged in a political process, one, Trump wouldn't have been the president. People in Pennsylvania stayed home, and no matter how bad they demonized him as a womanizer, the white women of America voted for him, hands down.
That's
so
true. That's true.
The other part that we need to do is we need to be a part of the process. From the time you're born to the time you die, your life is legislated. And it's more about not just on the federal level, but remember what happened? And this is why we're reaping some of this nonsense. Trump started to put people in places that we did not feel judgeships. Yeah. He was laying it out. He understood precisely how you control the narrative, control the courts, control the Supreme Court. You start putting people in there that think like you'll get what you want. And they've been doing it. And why? Because we're uneducated, we're uninformed, and we don't see the long game in this. Like, and I have to do this.
But Al, can I ask you a question, Al? But wasn't that something? Wasn't that something when in fact Obama was trying to do prior to Trump coming into, let's say, this nemesis coming into, let's say, power?
Yes.
And unfortunately, based on the legislative bond, in terms of people not wanting him to make these moves, they kind of blockaded a lot of what he wanted to do to ensure. Right. So, I mean, it obviously what you're saying, I get it very purely, but here it is. Obama thought about that. He wanted to ensure that after him moving, let's say after office, that we would have something that would be beneficial to us on a legislative level. And every time he tried to put someone in the Supreme Court, they based on the Republican Party, they're bombarded. They made excuses. They freaking they pretty much decapitated him throughout everything he wanted to do.
Everything. They didn't even want to allow him to put into place Obamacare, which he did. Yeah. And now look, they're attacking Medicare and Social Security. Older people in this country aren't going to have an opportunity, God knows what, to be able to afford medical care and have their Social Security if things keep going the way it is. In regards to what Al said with the Republican Party, listen, the reason why you have white people voting for Trump is because in certain households, if they're Republican Party, they don't matter who's going in office, they're going to vote for him. That's just like what's going on now with Trump. With Trump is headed, they looking at Trump as the head of the Republican Party. That everyone who's in the Republican Party who doesn't have a mindset to think outside the box, they're going to just vote Republican regardless of what. Instead of saying, what does this person stand for? What are they doing?
Yes.
And And that's part of, and that's the issue there.
But the thing that's so ironic is that the things that they pretty much decided in terms of the Republican Party, the things that they're taking away from them. I mean, honestly, they're targeting what they want to take away because they're looking at it as being a larger picture associated with us, people of color. But they don't
Absolutely.
understand that
Hmm.
what's being taken away is being ridded from them as well. Like
Hmm.
everything and anything that we fought for in terms of civil rights associated with, let's say, welfare, the welfare system. Only let's just take that for an example. It
Hmm.
wasn't. It's not benefiting us in the sense of the word because even though they put us out on Broadway saying that the welfare system is pretty much propagated based on black and Hispanic, or let's say indigenous people, no, it's the white, I'm sorry, it's the white community that benefits more
Yep.
from freaking welfare than we do. So
Absolutely.
all of this shit that they're sitting up and putting themselves in airs and standing on soapboxes and waving flags against, it's hurting them as well. And it's the ignorance that's really bothered me. They don't understand what they're covering their own noses off to spite their own face, and I don't
Hmm.
understand that.
Yeah.
You hit
Well,
it right
that's
there.
what it
It's
is.
ignorance.
Ignorance. It's
You
straight
It's pure
ignorance.
you hit it. It's
ignorance.
ignorance. It's ignorance. And here's the deal. In my opinion, the ignorance is they're relying on uninformed people to continue to walk the walk, drink the Kool-Aid, and follow them. But meanwhile, their personal wealth is growing. When I say they, the people at the top of the meat chain, he's hijacked
Right, the
the
first five
Republican Party.
percent of this country, first
Yep.
3.
1 to 5% of this country
3.
is actually they're the ones that are capitalizing on this ignorance, while the rest of us, unfortunately,
Bam.
are putting ourselves in a particular state of degradation.
Which is why Tish James has him in court right now in New York City because he's over exaggerated the price of his properties and all the things that he's done, which was illegal. And he is now facing civil charges for that. It won't send him to
Hmm.
jail, but I hope it will stop him from being able to do any type of business in the state of New York and taking those things that have his name on it. So, but the more you build that, I just want to come back to one if I'm still here. There was a question regarding term limits. I think that's a dangerous place to be. I think it has relevance. Is hearing the voice of the people. But again, if they're uninformed, so for example, I'm 6 years in, literally only 6 years. I don't have a committee, but I'm busting my butt. But if I was down to only 4 years, I whatever wouldn't have not materialized because you're turning over too quickly to get anything major accomplished. I gave away some money 4 years ago, and it's still coming down the pipeline to the people that's supposed to receive it. That's how slow the process is at times. So I'm very leery of. I think there should be if you have to step out and come back in, but we have to be careful that. And I'm certainly not a proponent of people being old because what really interesting, I find super interesting is
Yeah.
they say you can't be too old, you can't be too rich, but Bernie Sanders is as old and as rich as you're gonna
That's
get,
right.
and
Want a
he's the
gun? Want
Mm,
guru.
a gun with you?
He's the guru. Like everybody, like
mm-hmm.
they pay homage to him. He's got this
All
tall,
right.
young, as a socialist, he's killing it. But you
But she,
can't be old, or I can't be
but
old
she,
and rich because we are the problem. But he's not. Don't figure.
And let me ask you a question, Al. The issues associated with what you've been trying to be a proponent for, and you said now it took almost what 2 to 3 years. What was the blockade in regards to that? Is it based on the party? Is it based on the Republican Party? Is it based
No, it's
It's
on the
it's
distribution.
support?
see,
It's distribution.
it's seniority.
Hmm.
So there's a pecking order. Um, so as what I came in a special election in 2017, right? And so every other year I'm running for re-election, and we're in session from January to June, more or less, give or take. But what happens is they're not session. So let's say I come in and or am in, and you want to move. I'm on banks, but I don't chair any committees. right? Because change comes when you're in those seats and cheering. And so if I took you and put you in tomorrow and you just got there yesterday, it's kind of crazy. So you have to build your profile, if you would. You have to build your seniority to get into some of these
Mm,
places we're sitting at. And you can say, well, you know what? If we do term limits, then you can bounce some of them. You can, but it's
mm,
like a fine dinner, man. You got to spend some time putting the ingredients together. And it may be a weak response that I'm giving you tonight off the top of my head, but it doesn't happen in like it's hard to get it done in 2 years or 3 years.
okay.
It takes
Makes sense.
continuity, knowing who the people are. So, for example, in 2019, we did bail reform, but we also did a major housing piece that was historical. We changed so many things on the state level when it comes to housing, what landlords could and could not do. We tried to level the playing field so that tenants could get relief. And then also we want to make sure that landlords, when I say landlords, I want to move over to like revenue, the bigger that buy. They get portfolios of 400 buildings. That's what they do. Acquire, they sit, they wait. I'm not talking about the family in Brooklyn that the mother has a house and then the father has his grandmother's house, because there are more homeowners in Brooklyn than there are when you find in Manhattan because of the way it's set. But yet they're still landlords. And we have to make sure when we're doing legislation that's there that we don't have, what's the word, unintended consequences, because we treated them like big landlords. So there has to be room. And when people say these landlords are, yeah, you have to be careful. Yeah, you want to help and you want to make sure that they're not bad actors on both sides of the table, but you can't really just do this is what we're going to do to all landlords. It's not the best thing to do. And what you'll see is you say, well, they're Caribbean people from the Caribbeans. They're hard workers and they've owned these things and they understand ownership, which looks different in Manhattan because most of the people are rentals when it comes to people of color. So when we say, well, I like landlords, and somebody else will take that and put it on national news. He supports landlords. No, but you have to drill down a little bit if I'm making sense here. Just different
Hmm.
things that it's not a one and done. So I can appreciate why the question is term limits, but I'd be mindful of how fast you do it. Maybe it's 6 years. I don't know.
Oh, let me just say
If,
this.
if
Let
it
me
has
let me,
to.
let me interject, Al, real quick. And everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. That's Assemblyman Al Taylor. I got a show full of co-hosts tonight. That's what's up. Ty Butler. Yeah. But let me just say this. I totally understand where that should be amended with somebody like you who's young and vibrant, and you have so much to give, and you're
You
on
so
the
kind. Did he
force.
call me young and vibrant? Oh man,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yo,
leave
brother,
Absolutely.
that. That was.
Absolutely.
listen, brother, you still walking, moving, you walking miles that I'm not walking. I'm gonna wave at you on from the sideline. You know what I'm trying to say? But I say that because the bottom line is the reason why I say young and vibrant is because at 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 your age, you're not uh, antique. You're not a dinosaur, and you're not stuck in your ways where you're not willing for change. I think a lot of times when we look at, and I'm just speaking for myself, I can't speak for anybody out here or the panel. When we see a lot of people that are in these things, we see these old wrinkled men that are making decisions that have not, uh, come to age. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying?
Understood.
So that's why I think a lot of times people, but if we get new blood in you, like new blood in there, like yourself, that like you said, you're 6 years in, you know, boom, 6 years, 15 years, but you're still conforming to what the size. You still got your ear to the street. A lot of these
Understood.
people, a lot of these people don't believe in like Ty and I think Chuck were talking about earlier, like rights, pro-choice and not and stuff like that. But I would love to go into their closet and find out what their skeletons say. You understand what I'm trying to say?
No,
Because
let me
understood.
let me
Understood.
say this. Can I
no, go
address
Ty.
two
Yeah, go ahead,
things?
please.
So, one being a landlord from Brooklyn and dealt with the issues of the politics of civil landlord tenant court, which is horrible, and where you could have someone in there not paying rent for years, going back and forth playing the game. What has been done to address that? That's one. And two, in regards to the term limits thing, Al, I agree. 4 years may not be enough for someone to do something, but
Uh-huh.
if you turn around and say, "Look, you got 8 years, right? You got to do something in 8 years rather than go in there and shuck and jive and and
Mhm.
and and and, and make a name for yourself, but you got to do something for the people." Now, look at Niger. For as long as I've been a kid, I've never lived in Niger, but I've never really seen anything done other than little band-aids here and there over the years with NYCHA. I've seen a few buildings, they painted the outside to try and bring it in, make it a little modernized. Inside, every now and then I see, when I've been inside, I've seen them change
Uh-huh.
appliances every 15, 20 years, and of course they addressed the lead paint situation over the last 20, 30 years. But my thing is this, that when you have older mindset people in there, they're going to still be stuck in that same mentality where they're not
Ye- Yes.
changing with the times. See, the only thing that's constant in life is change. And if people, we have to adapt because we don't have the power. But the people who have the power, they feel like they don't have to adapt, and they just go on like business as usual. And we, as the people, we suffer. So I'm just curious. My question is, like, in regards to landlord, what has been done? And I understand what you're saying. Like, you say you took a little backlash because you work for the, but what, in a sense, for the smaller landlord who doesn't have 400 plus units, the guy who has 2 or 3 units, you know what I'm saying?
Um,
What?
definitely some good conversations. And I'll try to answer them in the order. So with the landlord tenant piece, um, I know we fought and we didn't get half the things that we wanted, but landlord tenant court is long. If you're in New York City, landlord tenant court is probably the friendliest place in the nation for tenants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you have, and we know this. We know, and it's hard to just point a finger and a stick and get them all. But certainly, you had people that were getting money hand over fist in COVID, and they were not paying their rent, and they weren't paying their
At
rent
all.
beforehand.
At
We
all.
have close to, I don't know, I was talking to somebody um, from NYCHA, and NYCHA is different when it comes to landlord tenant court than what we do regularly in other people outside of NYCHA. But NYCHA has its own system, it's a little bit different. But there is close to a $500 million in debt for rent arrears coming out of NYCHA, right? And so some of those things are a combination of um, are these real numbers? Are these people that, and you almost have to go case by case. Um, so, for example, oh shoot, we provided relief. I can't ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which would allow a resident or tenant to be able to pull down money. It was first come, first serve basis to help with their arrears. One of the things that we found out in the second iteration, which created a second iteration, was that some people had just broke out of the apartment altogether, and the landlords were not going to receive anything. So we created an LRAP, which afforded landlords rental arrears, and they would be able to present, and that was on a first come first serve basis as well. So if you were a landlord and you had not been made whole because somebody broke out or they didn't file or whatever, you could actually have filed for it. Again, it wasn't enough money to satisfy the whole state, but we had to fight for that. We had to fight for that
Okay.
on two levels.
And I
Just
appreciate that. What I only thing I'm addressing is this, like, and this is goes back to what Bill asked in the beginning, like, what's going on with government? People in power, or people like yourself who may be in office, they'll turn around, they'll do good things, and they'll try and make bring certain laws in to help the people. But when you don't cross your T's and dot your I's on certain things, it honestly it's like null and void. Because here's a situation where, and what you said about landlord tenant, right? That money, if they're in arrears, that money should have went straight to the landlords. When you put it in the tenant's hand, they, like you said, they could run off with it. See, I'm also a property owner in Georgia. Georgia, your money, you ain't pay your rent by the 15th. The 30th, the marshal
yeah,
or the
Marshall
sheriff come
got
and
you.
put your stuff out on the street. You know what I mean? And you got your place back. You know,
But my
and
understanding was the iteration that we did in the first round, even that, like the tenant couldn't take that check. That COVID money for LRAP had to go to the tenant could initiate the pull for the money, but it didn't come to that person. They had to get it. It had to be made out for property managers. If I'm wrong, I stand
okay,
corrected.
okay.
But there was another piece that you mentioned. I just wanted to bring that to it. So, and here's something that I want people to understand a little bit more than that. So, for example, I'll give you another piece. Unemployment. Um, oh God, we put out. Let's say New York State did $10 billion worth um, what was that? That was Department of Labor, da da da. And so people that lost their jobs that could have gotten money, everybody that could get money was getting money except for the migrant workers. I'm going to call them migrant workers at the time. They didn't use that name. They were gig workers. So they're the ones that people were calling to get their food to their houses. Only money they got, whatever they got in that process. But some of them was doing that before that. They couldn't even go out and do that. So let's say we asked for $1 billion out of 10 billion to make sure that those people got that. And people say that makes sense. But one of the things when you talk about the continuity of the state of New York, you have those, what do you call it? Democrats are Democrats, but they serve sometimes in Republican stronghold communities, although they're Democrat. So what are you saying? Sometimes they will vote or tend to be as conservative as the Republican because of the base that they represent. So even though we would have the majority in the assembly, which is 103 of us, depending on what that piece of legislation looks like, we may lose some of our allies that are Democrats on the other side of the state simply because they have a super conservative and they're right neighbors to the Republicans that are da da da. Just so like just to give some more flavor to the conversation.
Mhm.
That's what I introduced that for.
And
No,
that's why you
everybody,
get
this
the
Real Talk
paper.
Chronicles. I'm
And
your host,
that
Bill Foster, with my co-host Al Taylor, my friendly man Al Taylor, my brothers Chuck Richards and Ty Butler. I just want to read a comment, and I don't know if it's a question. Let me scroll back and get it. Shout out to everybody chiming in. My man Tramel Thomas is in the building. Adrian Johnson Jr., Kenyatta. Also, too, Enid Ocasio. She's in the building. That's a powerful sister. She's doing her thing with domestic violence and stuff like that. AJ says,
nice.
unfortunately, we can speak in absolute terms. Trump galvanized people who didn't like the direction of the country, which doesn't include people of color. When black folks get what appears to be gains, it's usually just a token that gets folks feeling good but has no long-term results. Just my opinion, distraction. It's all good. I read it again. He said, unfortunately, we speak in absolute terms. Trump galvanized people who didn't like the direction of the country, which doesn't include
Mm-hmm.
people. When black folks get what appears to be gains, it's usually just a token, which is true, that gets folks feeling good, but has no long-term results. Let me tell you something. I think, and
Yes,
I'm speaking from
yes.
my personal feelings, it just seemed like when Obama got in office, they were shocked that he got there. But the whole thing was like, oh no, what? And then Trump realized that there are a group of racists out there that once he starts spewing some negativity, boom. I mean, it's the same thing he did with the exonerated five. People, a lot of people didn't think Trump was really going to win. I don't even think he thought he was going to win. He exposed a lot of stuff, but he didn't. But he forgot to expose himself. And in lieu of exposing himself, exposing other things with taxes and stuff, like why he didn't pay his taxes, the same reason why a lot of other rich people didn't have to pay taxes. He exposed that. Then it came back to haunt him. Right now, he in court looking sad like a mother. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it is what it is, and how it's going down. I just think right now that it seems like politics has become a itch show. And I'm sorry for people like yourself, Al, who really, that I know personally, who really do care about what's happening in this country. And it's going to affect a lot of us. Let me ask you guys a question real quick as we close out. We got about like another 4 minutes. I'm being serious. I mean, it's hate to say this. Do you think this is leading to a civil war? And I'll start with you, Ty.
Short end answer, absolutely. I think it's already, a lot of elements have already been in place. If you pay attention to some of the videos you see where they show you certain communities, they've been training their kids with firearms, and certain communities haven't, and then you have the violence you have on the streets, and honestly, it's all about preparedness. Who's going to be the most prepared? And it doesn't look like our communities will be,
Yeah. Chuck?
Well, I would say that unfortunately it's inevitable. I mean, just taking into consideration what's happening now, if you've actually listened to some of the rhetoric that Trump has spewed, even knowing that his businesses and he's in a particular I would say judicial war, which he thinks is a war and it's really not, in terms of his businesses, his misappropriations of the facts, and the things that he has said, because obviously there's been no gag order. It's as if he's making statements deliberately to spew more of what we saw on January 6th. I mean, he's made comments about the judge and about Letitia, James, and the things that he has said associated with everything, a part of what he at one point said very clearly, that he believed in the judicial system, that he believed directly in law enforcement, directly related to police officers and his love for this country. And now that same judicial system is pretty much trying to cut his balls off. He's now putting a different narrative and a different spin on it, so that now he's fueling that pipeline again, as he did prior to January 6th. So I can't see it being anything more than about it being somewhat of a civil war, and there being a large division, which has already been growing over a period of years since he was in office. And as opposed to what Ty is saying, there are more brothers and sisters who are far more ready for this than we think. I mean, it's an illustration of what happened not too long ago, where there was an issue where people wanted to lock these men. I get it. He hit somebody with a chair. I get that. All right. It got to a point where, yes, the person used the chair to assault a white man. But see, despite the circumstances and despite what happened, even if we feel it was egregious in terms of them going to that extent, it's very apparent that we as black people, as indigenous people, I'm sorry, we're not going to tolerate that shit. It ain't going to happen. Ain't nobody coming in Harlem and in the Bronx talking that nonsense. And guess what? Anywhere there's black folks, as it's been said very clearly, and Malcolm X is very, very clearly, we as a people understand who and what we are, the strength that we have. We're not going to tolerate this shit anymore. Yeah. So if you want to bring it, guess what? You're going to get more than you expecting, because guess what? We're going to put our foot up your ass. I'm not trying to infuse or to put people in a position to be violent. But I'm sorry, we ain't tolerating this shit no more.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
gonna happen. If you want to bring it, guess what? We got smoke for you.
yeah.
So
Real talk.
you make that decision. I'm not saying I'm advocating it, but if somebody brings it to me at this particular point, I got something for your ass. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. Real
Okay.
talk.
Can I interject just before Al goes real quick
Yeah,
on what
absolutely,
Chuck said?
absolutely. We got minutes.
When I said that we're not ready, I mean as far as us coming together. You understand what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we'll a few people will stand up, but remember, it's been how many years of conquer and divide, just like they did within the police department. So you're gonna have individuals who are at the top and have wealth, and they're not gonna want to get their hands dirty like us that are middle class or aren't on that level. And that's where the civil war mentality comes in when they take something away from people who are in power and they can't get it back. And that's just what happened when they tried to take away slavery. That was it. They were like, no, they're not standing for this. So now the war breaks out. So when they start taking away people of wealth who have that 3% that you talked about earlier, that have a certain amount of wealth, when you start tapping into that or messing with that or messing with their political agenda, like what has been going on, that's when stuff will start to hit the fan. And we as a people have to be ready to come together and fight together, not
And
just those who
and I respect your point of view, but I do. I mean, unfortunately, I mean it's unfortunate, but we as middle class, we outnumber that 3%. And if we look at each other as being one, I'm not talking about just people of color. I'm not saying that's black. I'm talking about Hispanic, Indian, people
Mhm,
who are indigenous people. Let's say even some of these white folks, they don't realize they're not even white. They don't want
mhm.
to come to the realization that they're not truly what white is. But
I know.
guess what? If they want to take that chance, so be it.
Mhm.
But if in fact we all decide very collectively that it's about us against them, I do believe that universally we will look at one another and say, "Hey, I'm with you. Let's make this shit happen. Let's do what we need to do in order to step forward and be as a united front." Because honestly speaking, as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing and there's no one in the United States at this particular point that is purely white.
No one.
Hell
There's
No
yeah.
one.
no one in
No
the
one.
United States. We have we have crossed. They have just. I'm sorry, not them saying that had to do with black people, but
Mhm.
black, Asian, Hispanic. They have crossed on so many levels. There is no one that is purely per se white, and there is more indigenous and mixed interracial people here in this country now, more so ever, ever in this country has ever seen. And
And
I think
that's
that
why they
that is
took
what,
away. I
and
was
that's
saying that's
why
why they took away the teaching in history.
that is what exactly that's what they're afraid of. They realize that their overall populace, in terms of what is purely white, has now been trickled down, is being diluted on so
Mhm,
many levels. And
mhm,
if we look at ourselves, look to the left, look to the right, say, no, my mom is, she's Hispanic and my dad is black, or my
mhm,
dad is Asian and my father is white. No, you're not white. I'm sorry. You got a little color, you got a little some shit running up in you. You're
mhm,
not purely what they. I'm sorry, some other shit run up in you. You
Yeah,
ain't white.
mhm.
You
yeah,
ain't
yeah,
motherfucking white. Sorry.
You ain't
All right.
white.
And if you look at
yeah,
that
yeah,
and you
yeah,
embrace that for what it truly is,
Mhm.
we outnumber them more so than what they think and what they
yeah,
feel. And if
yeah,
we
yeah.
collectively look at it as a united front, we are outnumbering and we can do so much more in terms of instead of looking at each other as enemies and looking at each other as family, as allies. And
Mhm.
that's the problem. And Trump has done whatever he could to put us in a position not to feel that way, and we need to do something in order to putting that back into existence. And that's my only point. And I know
No,
I applaud what you're saying, Tom. I'm not
no,
against
no,
what you're
no. You
saying.
you kicking it
You
both of
know,
you. Well, we all kicking it because the bottom line is, I've always had this slogan: "Where you act up is where you get it." And if you bring it, then I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna answer the questions. Like a person said one time, a long time ago, is like, "Yo, I'm gonna kick your ass." I said, "Well, when you start kicking my ass, what you think I'm gonna do?" You know what I'm saying? You think I'm just gonna stand there? You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Like, yo, so you're thinking you're going to kick it because you don't know what's gonna happen. It's that ideology of I'm gonna punch you and it's gonna stop. That's not happening, Captain. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna take it right to 141 in Riverside. Like, I'm a Harlem dude. Like, you swing, where you act up is where you get it. I'm gonna give it all to you. So what's so funny? Shout out to everybody that's chiming in. I'm trying to say hi to you. Hey, AJ, we definitely gonna talk offline. Everybody's giving y'all mad love and dap. So Al, I'm gonna ask you, what is your thought? Because you got some brothers here that have kept it, that keep it 100. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. We're back. You know what I'm saying? We ain't saying Candyman 5 times, but you can say Real Talk a couple of times. I don't know how it's gonna get to you. This is our month. Listen, we got Dr. Corder coming in next week, talking about breast cancer and some other stuff. So, ladies, for people, please let know if you want to ask that personal question or you want to chop it up with her offline. You can do that. But this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We got stuff like that, or just any issues dealing with people of color, or just the following Monday. Excuse me, we got Allison Williams coming back. Allison is in the group. Shout out to Alley Cat. We're gonna talk about some other stuff. I got some special guests coming through on the 30th of October at the Magic Johnson Theater in Harlem. My man Mahalia Betha, Sensei Mo, as he's affectionately known, Grandmaster Mo, did a movie called I think Blood Mixer. I forgot the name. Lord, excuse me, forgive me. I'm in the movie. He's having a showing with that. So if you want to know anything about coming to the premiere of that movie, it's red carpet at Magic Johnson Theater, October 30th. Let me know. The brunch party, the 1st and the 3rd of every month. This is the last Saturday that the streets will be closed off. So if you're not doing, I know the weather is talking a little funny, sunny, but if you're not doing anything, you want to come out and experience what it's like to have a mature block party, come on by. We're there from 1 to 8. Al, I want you to talk. I know you talked about the stuff with the flu shots and the COVID stuff. If you want to mention that again, but before you mention that, I want you to talk about what's your thoughts on a civil war aspect, because we all feel, through the three of us, I think I'm correct, that it might come, and we already, I might have to put on some NWA or some Tupac, you know what I'm saying? But I'm ready. Public Enemy, Bass, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Al.
It's interesting because I thought about Chuck D when my brother was speaking, headed for self-destruction. But at the same time, I think for me, I hope that that's not where we end up at. But it wouldn't surprise me if we found ourselves there because of the temperature in the room, when half the country is in one direction, half is in the other. And it's always good that people, you referenced it a moment ago, Bill. People like to talk a lot, but when it comes down to throwing their hands, they ain't ready for that. So some of those folks that are part of that conversation, and they got guns and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, they're not ready to do the hand game. I don't think they are. They're not prepared for that. But the other part is, I'm concerned about a generation of people behind us that are also unemployed.
Hold that thought for 1 second, Al. People are not ready for the hand game. And as a martial artist, when I do private seminars and teaching and people like this, my teaching is evolved. I can't keep teaching you how to fight if I can't teach you how to shoot. I say all that to say that if I'm still teaching you how to block and punch, that's the beginning. That's the origin of how to fight. But right now, I'm not teaching anybody how to do that without teaching you how to get to something else. I'm just saying all that because, like you are saying, it's something right. I don't want people, whatever your mind sake is, to just think on I got you here, but then you pulling out the gun or the knife, because the world has evolved. Let me tell you something. Chuck and I know, I can say it. A lot of people that we work with, that we love, and we don't love. Chuck Ty, I think you said this earlier. They teaching their kids at a young age how to shoot, how to shoot from far away. You understand what I'm trying to say? Now, shooting in real life is not like that. It's good to learn how to shoot sights and all that. But
Excuse me.
We know how to kill, and it's hyped in the street, in the news, because the bottom line is I post up all the time on people of different colors fighting in the games at sports events or other things. They don't post that. That doesn't get the play. But what gets to play is our people of color hurting each other. So people out there listening to Real Talk, understand there's violence across the board on all ethnicities. Don't get it twisted. And the bottom line is there's sheep and there's wolves, right? You don't have to be either one. But the bottom line is you can be prepared for either one. You know what I'm trying to say? If you understand my terminology. Go ahead, Al. Continue, brother, please. You know what I'm saying?
So just for my space, I'm not an advocate for fighting at all. As a pastor, I'm always trying to figure out how do you get where you want to go without having to go to the hands. That's me.
Of course, understood.
And if I can diffuse a situation, I served 3.5 years as a military police officer. And every scenario I found myself in was because it had to go down that way. I always tried to think about how I would like to be treated in this situation. And then if it didn't go that way, then you know what? You bought this one yourself, my dude. And you do what you had to do. But as an individual and my nature and who I am, I'm laid back and I'm always trying to figure out how do you stop it. But because I'm that way doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the world is that way. It is coming whether I invite it or welcome or not. So I'll deal with that as it shows. But what's more important to me, and I was about to make this point, was there's a generation which would be equivalent to my grandkids or my kids that are not prepared for what is happening. They're totally oblivious to what's going on around them. They get their news in like 140 characters, or somebody said something in a 20-second tweet or something like that. I don't know, Instagram. So there's a whole education component that we have to add to it. And they're bright. And I'm not saying that they don't have good ideas, but there's a missing element. Like if one of us walk down the street in New York City, there are a whole lot of things that are happening as we walk that block. We're looking 2 blocks ahead of us. We're hearing and we're looking at everybody around us. We have this thing that goes out about us that we're paying attention. And I can still have a conversation with you the whole block. But there's something about that that intuition or intrinsically is operating inside of you to make sure you're seeing everything around you and listening for what you don't see, or looking for what you don't see and listening for what you don't hear. There's always something going on. And I just don't think that the generation that's behind us is in tune to that for the most part. So they're listening and watching and they're taking the information from one side. I just think we have to do a better job of preparing them for the reality in which they're living in. I think that's a missing component. There's a disconnect. So if I came up the hill on 145 in Broadway, Woolworth up there, or if I come 145 in Edgecombe, then I got the number runner. But you had posted people, you knew who they were, what they did, and they kind of steered you from what you can't do on this block as long as they were on that block. That's a missing element in our neighborhoods. You know, like if if we were doing something, then you couldn't do that on that corner because it belonged to somebody else and they had respect for that whole community, and you weren't going to disrespect them, whether they were the number runners or whatever they were doing. And then it got to this point where we just doing whatever we want to do. And even our shooters on the scooters and doing their thing, they're not ready for, I mean, they can do the grunt work, but we have to educate our kids, our young people, that, hey, be prepared for something worse than this. Do you know how to cook? Do you know how to, there's just a lot of components that are missing on the urban point, in my opinion, that I see out here. For me, I like to work. And it's like, honestly, the people that need my help, in my opinion, that need my services the most are not involved in the process. So when somebody come at me and I'm doing fundraisers, it's $150,000 to run an election. The people that I serve don't have that money. I have to sit and talk to people such as yourselves and say, hey, you know what? We like the work that brother is doing. He can't do anything on my block in my state, but he's doing something over there. This is not a campaign pitch. It's just the reality in which we live in. And it's okay if you don't have money, but roll up your sleeves and say, you know, we're going to knock doors. We're going to get all our people out, because it's all about a vote. And you can't even get that sometimes. And
Let me just say
it's
this, Al. I
disheartening.
totally agree, and I, I know you from, I respect you from all kind of angles. I know you're a man that's going to protect your family, no matter what your faith is, and I understand that you, from your faith, you're going to speak of a peaceful thing. But the bottom line is, I'm personally saying, I'm not going to be so peaceful where I'm going to come and let you hit me and clump me in my head, and I ain't going to be prepared for the block. You know what I'm trying to say? Because the bottom line is, we understand that there's wolves out there, and we are dealing with a society. This is my personal feeling, that we're getting wolves from all different ethnicities. You know what I'm saying?
Understood.
Malika and I in Rehoboth, and I got people looking at me now because the tourist attraction is not there, and they're looking at me because I'm not them. It's almost like I felt like I was in a Stepford Wives kind of town. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait a minute, like, yo, like, I'm just walking with my wife, and you looking at me crazy just to look at me. You know what I'm saying? Then you got the people that just, hey, how are you? You know what I'm saying? Because you can tell I'm not from there. For whatever reason, you can feel it. But the bottom line is, you're looking. So I'm just saying, the mindset of people is a terrible thing. That's why when I promote things on social media, I put like Black History is taught this during this month. I put out things historically so we can refresh our memory. Hopefully people can chime in and read that, because the bottom line is, that's why the critical race theory is so important to me, because and I'm so disgusted with what's happening in Florida. I'm so disgusted that a man that tells you that slavery was an art, you were able to get a trade, is able to converse and run for office. Because you know what's next? The four of us can run for office now, because I'm gonna talk some it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna be some real with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have my brothers with me, standing there with me. And when the cat say something different, then yo, I'm not gonna hit you with the well, listen, you're not gonna tell me to shut up. Money, I'll punch you in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give you some real neighborhood stuff. Because if you're taking the neighborhood stuff that you're getting from the other nationalities and cultures and you're enjoying it, then when I give it to you, then you're going to embrace it. Because that's where it's at with that. You know what I'm saying? I'll let you guys give some last thoughts and comments. Shout out to our former law enforcement people. Roscoe's in the building. Robert is in the building. E, what's up? Deshazo, my man, is in the building. I appreciate you, brother. Dwayne Davis, my guy. Biff is in the building. Shout out to everybody. Jay, appreciate you all chiming in. Ladies, it's good to see you guys. We're back. We had Assemblyman Al Taylor stop in with us because we wanted to talk. We started off talking about this debacle that's happening in the government with McCaffrey or whatever dude name is. And he got ousted by his own guy, the Republican Party. And, we ended it on the Civil War aspect because, like I said, I feel you better be ready, man. You know what I'm saying? I tell my wife, I tell my mother-in-law, I tell all my friends, if you're able to get a firearm, get something. There are wolves out here. No matter what the wolves look like, they're wolves. Be prepared. Ty Poe is in the building. What's going on? Shout out to all my captains, my kings and the queens in the building. Al, I'm gonna let you close out first, and then I'm gonna let Chuck and Ty finish it out. Come on, Al, come back in here. Don't hide from me. Nothing. Ty, Al, you good? Well, go ahead, Ty. What's your thoughts, brother?
My thing is this. Listen, I don't disagree with Chuck, and I got Chuck's opinion. He didn't disagree with me. We as a people just need to be a little more organized, a little more prepared. Absolutely. Just having a gun is not it, because we both know that you could pull a gun and not know how to use it, and it'd be like a paperweight, or someone could just take it away from you. Also, Self-defense is something else that our people need to be involved in as well. But organization. I'm just gonna put one thing out there that I realized when I came down here, and I ran into a lot of retirees, and I was like, this, all of y'all living in like in one central area. You know, y'all need to think more strategically. You need to have a group, in the north, a group in south, a group in the east, and a group in the west. That if stuff ever hit the fan, now y'all not all stuck in one place, and everyone is armed, and you set up a central location where y'all can meet up at. And it was well taken. And after I said it, believe it or not, two dudes moved to the south where I'm at, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you don't have everyone in that one central part where they were. I don't know if Roscoe's going to take my advice. He's going to stay where he's at, but it is what it is. But that's how I'm thinking. Because when
Roscoe's in here, yeah.
when
Exactly.
stuff hits the fan, you got to be able to jump, and you can't wait for the media to give it to you, because by the time the media gives it to you, somebody's already at your door or in your driveway or coming up your lawn. You know what I'm saying? So just take heed and get trained.
Absolutely.
So,
Shout out to our brother Norman Davis in the building. He said, "What's up, fellas? Norm, let us know if you can come back soon, baby. I know I assumed you was moving and grooving from one country to the other, the cities and states, and Mississippi to Albuquerque. I'm trying to bust a rhyme, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean. But it's always good to see you, Chuck. What's your thoughts, man? I mean, first and foremost, I'm happy to see you brothers back. We had a nice little 2 months off. It's good to see you brothers. You came back. Everybody's chiming in. Our former law enforcement brothers is giving us love. I appreciate you guys for giving me your input, your knowledge. I appreciate you. I respect you. And I just wanted to give you your flowers right there. You know what I'm saying? Because if I haven't said it, I'm saying it now. I think I've always said it. You wouldn't be with me, rocking with me doing this if I didn't respect you and appreciate you. So I just thank you for taking the time out of your day. Hopefully one day somebody will appreciate all of what the work we're doing and give us our flowers back and put us somewhere on a platform where the world will really hear us. The world is hearing us now, but they ain't, positivity don't sell unless you're a rap star and you dropping a video and smacking some butt. But I'm still move it. And if you still with me, then we're gonna groove it together, brother. I just wanted to give you both that energy. I appreciate you. Go ahead, Chuck. What's your thought, man?
Well, first and foremost, Bill, man, anytime that you want anything from me, man, I'm in your corner, brother. I've known you for so long, man.
Yeah.
We've 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 gone through God knows what, man,
Oh my
together, and
God.
having
Exactly.
having Ty Boogie, that's why I call him
And
Ty
Ty, my
Boogie
God,
on the
Ty and
other
I, we
line,
have
man.
partyed
Ty's
together.
another cat,
Absolutely.
man. We've gone through the trenches together, man. So anything that you're doing, you promoting, man, always been on a very positive note. And I agree totally and on so many levels with Ty, but I think that we need to understand very clearly as despite as much as we're divided, people need to look at the fact that there is no such thing as the pure white race. There's no such thing. That's been diluted on so many levels. It's all about ideology and
mhm.
based on what people are being told based on rhetoric, and they're being pretty much funneled and being challenged and put down so many wrong roads on so many different levels. And I think as a community, we need to continuously put forth that despite the fact that if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat, it's about what the people need and what they want. It's not about party. It's more about people. And we all need to be universally ready for any issues that confront us as a people, not based on party issues, but
Mhm.
based on what we find as being ethically sound as a community. We want to be able to feed our parents. We want to be able to be there and give them health care. We want to be able to feed our children. We want to put them in a position where, in fact, they get an education that we can live in harmony with one another despite our differences and understanding that universally as human beings, we all have the same common interests. And that's the issue. And that's the problem And these particular party lines, despite who and where we are, independent, Republican, Democratic, that shit needs to be eradicated. We need to look at each other as being human beings and move forward based on that premise. And when we put people in office, that should be their bottom line, not their party. And that's the problem. And guess what? If we have to put ourselves in a position to take sides, when that happens, I'm not advocating violence whatsoever, but we need to stand for what it is that we believe in. And that's more important than anything else. And if we can be unified on that particular premise, then so be it. And what comes of it, as unfortunately, historically, whether it be the 40s, the 50s, or the 60s, we always have to go to this unnecessary battle. We thought that being a part of the American dream, all of that would have been eradicated by now. And it's very clear that we are now back, starting from ground zero, based on all the derogation and the rhetoric and the bullshit associated with Trump, even though it was in, let's say, in the shadows. It was like pretty much put under a cloud when Obama was there, but it was there. It was there. It came out in its own small way. But here it is. You had someone who exacerbated the issue and was in office and kind of put a fuel to it and put fire and put wood to it. And now it's something that now it's out on Broadway. And yes, we need to address that. We need to be ready for it. But guess what? We are far more closer in terms of being connected with one another more than we wish to believe. And that's what needs to be put out, that as a community, we are far more connected outside of this bullshit and this rhetoric being fed to us than we understand. The basic principles, the moral concept of what we are as a people is that we all want to put ourselves in a position to do what's necessary to ensure that our families, the people that we love and we care about are taken care of. And that is the foundation of what life is. Outside of party lines, that is what we want, and that's what we should be focusing on. And if we have someone that we put in office that's not directly relating to that issue, then fuck them. And we need to unite on a different direction as a universal front and as a people. And
Absolutely.
I mean that's where I'm coming from. I'm sorry,
No,
brother.
no,
I
no.
mean whether somebody
Listen, I
and if somebody
respect
don't
it.
like what I just said, then yeah, they can go fuck themselves. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. Listen, let me tell you something, Ty. I'm gonna give you a chance to follow up on that. I have nothing to say but just good night. But Ty, say what you got to say, brother, because let me tell you something. I got powerful brothers. This is Real Talk Chronicles, baby. I'm Bill Foster. That's Chuck Richards. That's Ty Butler. Thank you, Assemblyman Al Taylor, for chiming in. It wasn't your night, but you came back and showed some love. I see you, Allison. I see everybody. Ty, baby, bring it
I'm
home,
good.
man. Bring it
I'm
home.
good. I'm
You
good.
good?
Chuck took it home. I mean, honestly, it is what it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he's put out there that a lot of people don't realize that who they are as a people and where they're derived from. But you know what? We can't worry about them. We just gotta, as a people, we gotta come together. Those who have the mindset and know what to do and know how to prepare for certain things and make it happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's believe it or not, they just turn it into no more racism. It's about classism, and if you're not in certain classes, but where we fall short is some of our people because they have been successful and gotten to certain places. They feel they fall into that class until they get their card revoked. Just because you got the money don't mean that ain't nobody running up in your driveway. If it was I forgot what the movie was called. Purge, like a purge. Like if it's a purge, you can still be in a certain class.
You still can get it. You still can get it. You see,
you still gonna get it. Now, who gonna come to your defense if you feel you part of that? But
yeah,
that enough said, and I think Chuck covered.
Absolutely.
Everybody,
I love you, brothers, man. Love you guys.
Love you. That's Ty Butler, man. Chuck Richards. Thank you, Assemblyman Al Taylor. I am Bill Foster. Watch us, support us, share it. If you like the conversation, share it. We're back. Boom.
Peace and blessings, man.
We're back. See y'all soon.
All right. Peace.
Did y'all get my we in the green room?
Hold on.